McQuestion. For over 25 years, talking about things that matter with people who care. Production of McQuestion is made possible in part by individual viewers, supporters of the Foundation for Responsible Television, CF Accountants and Consultants, adding value to clients throughout the region, the University of Texas at Dallas, creating the future.
You know, a whistleblower is a person who exposes any kind of information or activity that is deemed illegal, unethical, or not correct within an organization that is either private or public. On this program, you'll meet 3 of them who have a specialty in financial services. Their stories will get your attention as they let us know just how corrupt some institutions really are. And you'll find out what you can do to help restore some ethical sanity to corporations and, yes, even to government. Let's meet them. First on my left is Richard Bowen, and although he's a professor of accounting at the University of Texas at Dallas, he's probably best known as the Citigroup whistleblower who was fired for trying to get the attention of Citigroup's top management about the funding and resale of fraudulent mortgages. His testimony before the Financial Crisis Inquiry Commission and the SEC was largely ignored and even covered up to protect executives who are, in my opinion, too big to jail. Richard, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Dennis.
Good that you don't have anything important to talk about, but we'll be back to you in just a minute anyway. And sitting next to you is a guy by the name of Michael Winston. Michael Winston is the author of this book, which is called World Class Performance: The Commitment, the Pursuit, the Achievement. And he's an award-winning executive. He's held top leadership positions at Motorola, Merrill Lynch, McDonnell Douglas, Lockheed, and yes, Countrywide. But at Countrywide, he soon discovered massive fraud, which he could not correct. His whistleblowing efforts led to a lawsuit, which he won, but now in a few minutes, we'll get the rest of that story. Would that be right, Michael?
That would be right.
Yes, that's not the good part of the story, but we'll get it anyway. So back to you. And finally, on my right is the author of this book, and this book is called The Best Way to Rob a Bank is to Own One. So think about that for a few minutes. Bill Black, Bill, I've seen you on Moyer's program on many occasions, and you're an associate professor of economics and law at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. He's best known as a serial whistleblower. As a regulator, he helped bring down Charles Keating of Lincoln Savings in Arizona, the former Speaker of the House, Jim Wright from Fort Worth, and he served as an expert witness against a former Fannie Mae CEO. His work has included fraud-related issues in Ireland, Ecuador, and the latest financial crisis. And as I said, he's the author of this book. So, Bill, let me ask you, first of all, the 3 of you, along with Gary who couldn't be here because he's sick, have sort of formed something called the Bank Whistleblowers United. Tell us what that is and why you formed it.
It is a group of these 4 co-founders who were whistleblowers in the area of finance and have independent expertise in finance. 3 of us are professors. As you said, we all have multiple advanced degrees and such. So we've seen it in the real world, and we've studied it academically as well. And the response to this crisis was so preposterously ineffective compared to other things. In the savings and loan debacle, which in terms of monetary losses is 1/160th the size of this. There were over 1,000 felony convictions just in cases designated as major, and they were the most elite folks running those scams, the CEOs and CFOs. Now we have 0 prosecutions. But we also don't really have very effective legislative responses in our view. Yes, there's a Dodd-Frank Act, and boy, there are regulations, but most of us think that they didn't track the things that needed to be done. And we find just so much of the discussion of the supposed causes of the crisis and such. I'll pick on Paul Krugman here, the idea that the largest banks had virtually nothing to do with it, and it was just this evil shadow sector is ridiculous. And we could tell that story. We could tell that story through folks like Richard Bowen and Michael Winston, who are here directly about the largest banks, Countrywide, which Krugman also said was just a small entity, was the largest home lender in America for 4 to 5 years and such. And we could come up with practical ways to fix things. So we look for things where there'd be no excuses from politicians. Oh, you know, I'm the president, but I don't control the House or the Senate. So we look for things that don't require new legislation, don't require new regulations, that you could literally implement most of these things within 60 days. We proposed that President Obama do so, and we ask whoever you support in the elections, go to your candidate and say, support these things.
Okay, great. I appreciate that. Now, unlike Bill, who sort of made his life in this thing accidentally with all the things going on, Michael, you had, from all I can read, a very successful career and didn't have all these issues until you decided to join Countrywide. So first of all, tell us why you joined Countrywide. Secondly, what you found. And third, what you tried to do.
Well, why I joined Countrywide is a complicated thing, but I'll just say they recruited me over a 5-year period. From the start of my time as global head of strategy for Merrill Lynch till past my tenure there, which was 4.5 years. And they got me living in New York. They always called me in November or December and just felt compelled to tell me what the weather was like in Malibu and asked me what it was like where I was. And so, really they wanted to build a broadly diversified yet integrated bank. They rhapsodized eloquently about their vision of being the Goldman Sachs on the Pacific.
Well, wait a minute. Let me stop you right there. Was that supposed to be a positive?
Well, then it
At
was,
the time
actually.
it was. Okay, I got it.
At the time it was. Goldman's, everything they touched turned to platinum. Goldman Sachs. They and Merrill Lynch got in a recruiting war for me. So I saw how these firms worked early on when I ultimately decided to join Merrill Lynch. But it was, I wanted one more, you know, you always want one more swing for the fences just before you say sayonara. And they had hired me until my chosen date of retirement, which would be when I turned 65. And they were, I came because Mazzillo made the cover of Forbes, CEO of the Year, and Countrywide was called the 21,000% growth company. And in my Motorola experience,